Hello and welcome to Of the People. I am Robert Chernin. Thank you so much for joining us again. We are at a tipping point. The war against Israel is nothing more than what you're seeing here in the United States. And let me connect the dots for everybody. Since Obama, there has been division in this country, pitting families against each other, pitting rich versus poor, men versus women, black versus white. Name the divide that hasn't been exacerbated since Obama. And you divide, you can conquer. Once you've been divided, then you can invade, as you're now seeing an invasion at the southern border. And before we got to all of that, let's understand something. The invasion is the culmination of not only the division in the country, but going after man's laws, going after half the country, going after the Supreme Court, going after the laws, because again, as I've said many times before, we are a democracy and we're really not. We're a constitutional republic. We're a nation of laws. You go after the laws, you go after the people who enforce the laws, you divide the country and you pit everyone against each other in little groups, and then you invade. That's exactly what you're seeing now in Israel. The last 6 or 8 months, Israel has been divided. And those people that were protesting in the streets over allegedly judicial reforms really had nothing to do with the judicial reforms. It had to do with the radical left, or what we really know as radical Marxist, or the liberal side of Judaism, which is something I can speak to, trying to paralyze and divide the country. Once that country was distracted, now all of a sudden the country gets invaded. This is the same playbook, the same connected dots that you're seeing here. And I would argue to anybody listening, it's an extension of what's going on here. There's a reason that this administration is trying to neuter and or make woke the military, because the one faction or force they've already co-opted, taken control of media, of education, of the judiciary. They have seeded the halls of power and the government institutions with people who are radical leftists. Look at the head of ICE, and I forget her name, but the woman who's the head of ICE is a radical open border supporter, heading up the agency that is supposed to enforce the borders. So once you neuter the military domestically and don't have to worry about that, and you're now trying to go after the guns, the one ally that can render support, now they can't come to America's aid, but the one ally that is an extension of the United States on some level in terms of being the only democracy in the Middle East, you have to take them down too. So what you're really seeing here from a 50,000-foot view is you are seeing they're going after Israel because we are at the tipping point. They made a decision that we're at a tipping point in this country and they're going for it. And now they're trying to take Israel down too. There's no excuse. There's no way to avoid the graphic pictures you see of Israelis being raped and burned alive, and children being killed in front of their parents, and parents being killed in front of their children, and 260 young girls being killed, and some men too, but mostly young girls in the desert who were just dancing and celebrating in a brutality the likes of which we haven't seen since the Holocaust. Unacceptable. But folks, understand, connect the dots. We are at a tipping point. America is at a tipping point, and so is Israel. More about that in the show coming up. We have a very special guest coming on the show, the Honorable Fred Zeidman, former chairman of the Holocaust Memorial under 2 presidents, both President Bush and President Obama, one of the leading voices in the Jewish world, not only in this country, but around the world. Stay tuned for that interview. We'll be right back.